Good afternoon. This is Daniel Maxin, and I will be teaching this semester course in Calculus 2, in addition to the course on partial differential equations, just in case that you are misplaced here in this playlist. So speaking about playlist, before we talk about anything else on the course, please make sure whenever if you are my student or anyone who wants to follow this course, make sure you position yourself in the playlist and then follow the videos posted there in order, because I'm teaching this semester simultaneously two courses on YouTube. I mean, with the lectures delivered on YouTube. And the videos are not all done yet, which means that during the semester I will be posting videos on both courses. So there shouldn't be any confusion, obviously, between Calculus 3 and PDEs. But just to avoid any possible confusion, always start with the playlist and follow the videos in the order presented there. Besides, the channel that I use on YouTube contains other videos for general interest, mathematical interest primarily, and also other courses which are not taught this semester. So if you are new to taking classes with me in this format, I want to go through a couple of remarks, which are the most important ones. There's more than what I just posted here in this initial page, but I'll mention those as we move along. And some of these remarks, I will repeat them along the way because they are very important. But I just want to point out the main principle of how I handle this course and in this format. The idea is to make the experience from the point of view of the students as close as possible to a regular lecture. So basically, you should essentially treat the screen as the whiteboard in a regular classroom. So because of this, it's important to use a screen that is larger than a phone. Now, of course, I'm not going to be able to force you to follow these advices, but they are there for a reason, and I count on you actually to do just that. Especially when it comes to, for instance, how much I put on a single page. So I'm expecting people actually to use a decent size screen. Definitely larger than a phone, right? I mean, it could be a tablet, it could be a laptop, computer, PC, and so on, but I wouldn't advise a phone unless it's really a large phone and you really have no problem squinting. These videos on YouTube sometimes are displayed in a format that is not high definition by default, depending on the quality of your connection. So there is a way to force the high definition video format, so do that. Make sure you choose high definition, even though you may have some buffering. If the connection is not great, that's still a small price to pay, because it'll look much better this way. When you start the video lecture, you need to act like you're in a classroom. Sit down, take notes, really act like you're in a classroom. So basically, the video format shouldn't essentially prevent any other device or habit you may have in the classroom. You need a notebook. You need a notebook for homework separated from the notebook in the classroom, and then be prepared to take notes. Really, the only difference from a regular classroom would be that you cannot interrupt me. Well, you cannot, what I'm saying is not, you can interrupt me, actually, you can pause the video, more on that later, but you cannot interact with me live. For that, we will meet during office hours via Zoom. And speaking about interruption, you are expected to pause and rewind as needed, because since this is not live, I won't feel the need to make pauses too often in the video. So I will count on you to actually pause, to catch up if needed, rewind if you need to actually see a specific step multiple times, and that should be expected. Make sure you don't skip ahead. I am on the concept that each topic takes as much time as needed. Some topics can take 5 minutes to cover, some topics can take an hour or two. That means you have to allocate time, accordingly. Some topics, when I teach them in a regular classroom, I use more than one lecture meeting. So don't be tempted to actually skip ahead just because the video is long. It's long for a reason. Maybe I add lots of comments, or maybe more examples than usual. All of these are important, so don't skip ahead. roughly speaking, you should allocate about 15 minutes for a 30 minutes video on average. It's not a strict rule, but the idea is that you need to basically allocate time for pausing and rewinding if needed. Make sure you have the tables or formulas with you as we move along. If you are my student, you are allowed to actually use formulas, not solve the examples, but formulas, especially those who are not maybe easier to memorize. So you can use tables of integrals or derivatives. Of course, some of the basic ones you should memorize them anyway, just to not waste too much time. But in general, if there are some formulas relevant to the section at hand, make sure you have them printed out so that you can refer to them quickly when you work the problems. In order to learn the topic, make sure you work out all solved examples in the video before you attempt the homework. This is probably the most important advice because it's still sometimes difficult to summarize in a couple of words what it really means to actually learn math, or to in fact take what you need to take from a lecture, because it's not just watching the video like you watch a movie. You basically have to work these solved examples, and that means you need to actually process the computation through your mind. I think the best analogy I can make is to act as if you are my grader. Not only because of slightly selfish interest that, if there is a typo, you can actually point it out and I can fix it, but this is really what we mean by, really reading math or watching a lecture. So that means you need to actually process the computation in your mind and do the computation yourself, even though you see it already on the board, but process it through your own reasoning and mind as if you are my grader. So imagine, for instance, that you actually check to see if I made a mistake. So that is the level essentially of what I mean by work out the solved example. If you actually manage to get into this habit, you will see, and you will have to trust my word for it, but you will be convinced yourself that things will be much, much easier, and it will get progressively easier once you get into this habit. In the sense that you will have far more power when you go over the homework. You will recognize the techniques, and especially the easier problems, you can solve them quickly, and then you have more time to focus on maybe slightly harder ones, and then you can progress much more efficiently through the course. There will be more things that will come to mind, but these are the main things to keep in mind before we move along with the first topic of the day. And what I like to do in Calculus 2 is to actually start with a brief overview of basic integrals and a little review of the substitution method. So on the next page, we're going to go over a couple of examples. And then the next lecture, the second lecture in the course, will be really the first topic of our course. So you'll have a homework on this introductory part as well, just as a refresher, and then we're going to move along with the first topic, which will be calculating areas with integrals. So stay tuned for the second page.